of course, expert opinion on the startup ecosystem of Pakistan. In the first day, of course, we captured a perspective both from the entrepreneurs and, of course, from people who are involved in the decision making, not just in terms of the regulatory processes, but also in terms of providing the investment and capital that is required for the startup ecosystem to thrive. And today, of course, we're also going to delve deeper into what exactly it is that decision makers such as the SECP and others can do for the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. And we're also going to be taking a look at what direction can then be set and the action points that can be taken as we move further. Of course, it is extremely important to understand as we, of course, take ahead from the where we left yesterday. Where is it that the challenges and the obstacles are, and how do we overcome them? I think an applause is due. This is no small feat. It's a remarkable initiative taken by the SECP, and it of course provides the kind of help and ease that we all hope for and that we want our startups to have. And so anybody with a business model and a product can test that, and the evaluation process has been made easier by the SECP, which of course contributes a lot to their growth. Ladies and gentlemen, next is a keynote speech by Mr. Abdul Rahman Baraj, who's Commissioner SECP, and he will be talking about other initiatives taken to support and promote startups in Pakistan and what we can do about to further their growth. Please welcome Mr. Abdul Rahman Baraj.
Behind holding these seminars and summits is to have more dialogue, to communicate the regulator's perspective, and the willingness to learn from the market, from the entrepreneurs, from the experts, from the analysts, and to understand their perspective also. Hopefully, to develop and reach common ground, identify the areas where we are on the same page, where we think alike, so that the regulatory support can be provided. Whatever the regulator should not do but is doing needs to be addressed, needs to be amended, taken away. And what is it that the regulator is not doing but should be doing? So that is the main idea from the perspective of SECP for holding conversations and summits like these. So there are a few areas I would like to touch The first is, what is the potential of our domestic market for meeting the investment needs of the startup and the private equity sector? And who are the potential investors? So the major question whose answer I seek from meetings and summits like these is, who are the right investors to invest in startups? Is it only the high net worth individuals in the country? Or are there any institutions which are also whose time horizons and whose investment strategies and whose risk appetite is also aligned with private investing and startup investing? I have always wondered as to why the banks do not allocate a portion of their assets, their investable assets, to private equity. Because to me, the banks have the greatest financial muscle and the capacity to take some risks in this sector. But most often, I am told that banking is a different industry. They don't have a very long-term horizon. Their risk appetite is lower. And right now, they have other opportunities where the risk-return trade-offs are better. So what are the other institutions? Let's hope that banks will also be gradually convinced to start supporting the startup businesses in one way or the other. If they're not inclined to invest, to make equity investments, probably they can think about lending to these businesses in small amounts at the least. But what are the other institutions which would be appropriate for potential investment in startups and private equity businesses? Do the insurance companies not have very long time horizons? Do the insurance companies around the world not invest in private equity? I believe that they do. A decent portion of their investable assets ought to be allocated to startups and private equity investments. And what about pension funds? They also have very long time horizons and the capacity to make such investments. So now the voluntary pension system that was introduced in Pakistan many years ago is gaining a lot of traction. Many governments have now begun to adopt the voluntary pension system as the pension scheme for their employees. So should we start thinking about introducing another investment category as one of the potential investments that the pension account holders in this pension system can make? Can private equity and venture capital funds be one of those categories? And can we potentially allow a small allocation to be made to these kinds of investments also? I think that we should seriously consider it and think about it. A small allocation to startups and private equity investments can add a lot of value to a long-term portfolio, which has a much higher risk tolerance compared to short-term investment portfolios. But I'm keen to know as to who else can potentially invest and what are the right measures to evaluate and find out what is the true potential of our domestic market. Probably we need to have more data, share more data, have more debate on this subject. So let's do that on a regular basis. The next question is about the regulatory framework. Who are the major regulators and what are their responsibilities and how well those responsibilities are being discharged? A very good point came up repeatedly yesterday that all these regulators should start sitting together. They should not work in silos. The State Bank of Pakistan and the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan and the Federal Board of Revenue and the Ministry of Finance and the Board of Investment, probably all of these regulators should sit together, They should establish formal structures where they can deliberate more, discuss more, seek feedback from the industry, and try to make better policies, more well-coordinated policies. There was appreciation for certain regulations that the central bank has made in recent times, allowing bringing in holding company regulations, which has made things relatively easier for the startup industry. SECP has been appreciated and admired for introducing the regulatory sandbox. FBR has been offering tax incentives, but there were question marks regarding certain taxation policies, the double taxation, potential double taxation of dividends that the investor earns through if they invest in private equity and venture capital funds. Probably that still needs to be addressed. That came as a very important point yesterday. And whether the corporate tax rates for startups should be lower. I have worked for FBR for many years, and I am generally averse to tax concessions and tax exemptions. But I have had discussions with entrepreneurs and the startup investors. And gradually, I am quite convinced that if we want to grow our economy at a higher rate, we will have to provide some special concessions of all types, including tax concessions to our startup sectors. So probably we should start thinking about lower corporate tax rates for at least those startups which are operating in a very transparent structure, which are operating in the form of private equity and venture capital funds. There was discussion about the procurement policies of the government. Younger companies should also be allowed to participate in public tenders and supply all kinds of goods and services which are required by the government. They should probably be allowed to team up with other established players or participate in that procurement process on standalone basis also. The Ministry of Finance has to work harder and deliver on the macroeconomic stability. The countries which have had low inflation, low interest rates, and positive long-term expectations and exchange rate stability, they have typically done much better in terms of mobilizing investments towards riskier investment avenues, which have a higher potential of future growth. And then there was talk about the education system. Probably our education system needs to deliver more and better. So there are all kinds of challenges where the regulators and the government need to be sensitized. And summits and conversations like these are probably an excellent way to sensitize the government and the regulators to realize what is not happening and try to make it happen. Then there was talk about more and better infrastructure to enable the startup ecosystems, have technology zones or special innovation zones earmarked for startup-related activity, providing all kinds of facilities and encouraging the financial institutions to provide the financing to all those ventures which are established in those zones or areas. And probably the governments and the regulators, despite a resource constraint, have to find ways to allocate some public resources for providing better infrastructure for the startup and the private equity industry as well. And then there was talk about funding, which is hard to get. What else can be done to enable the startups and the venture companies to raise more funding? There was talk that data needs to be captured and consolidated and shared in a more meaningful and systematic way to build trust amongst the potential investors and the potential entrepreneurs, as to what is the potential of this industry, where most of the investment is flowing, what are the concerns of the investors, what are the needs of the entrepreneurs. Probably we need to have more data, and we need to ensure that it is shared with all the relevant stakeholders so that they can make better decisions. Is crowdfunding a viable option for mobilizing resources for startups and venture companies? If yes, at what stage? Can a venture company opt for crowdfunding right at the beginning of setting up their businesses or at some later stage? And what can the capital market institutions like the stock exchange and the mercantile exchange do to facilitate that? So all of these are important questions that the regulator itself is asking from all of you, all the experts. And the best thing about such conversations and summits is that now we're moving towards institutionalizing this dialogue and this consultative process. The best thing and the most inspiring thing that I've learned from SECP over the last 2 years is the consultative process for making and amending and reforming the regulations. And I think every regulator and every government in the country should do the same. There should be more consultations so that the regulations to begin with don't give any negative surprises to the market. They are to the mark according to the market's expectations. And then there is a process for getting regular feedback from the market players and to amend and reform and update and improve those regulations. So I hope that this summit will go a long way to build more trust between the various stakeholders. It will lead us to developing stronger institutional structures, be it committees or working groups, so that we meet on a regular basis, so that we learn from each other, so that the regulators become more agile, more educated, and more accountable to the industry also. And let's hope that good things will happen if we will consult one another more and more often. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Varadsa, for those words. And of course, the aspect of consultation is extremely important. And we hear this often wherever we go. We talk about how different departments, different institutions, different sectors are working in silos, so that we need to talk to each other, we need to partner, and we need to work together. And this is something that we've been hearing on repeat. But you're right, this is what makes anything a success. The consultative process in itself is a success. And we hope that we have done a bit of it today. And as we move forward, that is what helps us set the stage for our startup ecosystem as well. Ladies and gentlemen, next is going to be a presentation on the Pakistan digital stack. And this is important, particularly in terms of the contribution to the digital economy and the possibilities with regards to digital transformation. And for that, we have with us Mr. Suhail Munir, who's a digital innovator and a transformation leader. And he's been actively doing his job with regards to digital transformation infrastructure in the public and private sector. And he has a lot to his credit with regards to the kind of frameworks that he has developed, including with reference to initiatives such as the NEOM Cognitive Cities Digital Master Plan, the Dubai Blockchain Initiative, the UAE Pass, the UAE's National Digital Identity, and his contributions in developing the IOC strategy for Riyadh Smart City, and in his contributions towards innovation, towards the digital economy of different sectors in Pakistan and in the world over. So please welcome Mr. Suhail Munir for his presentation on the digital economy of Pakistan. Do we have Mr. Suhail Munir, or is he joining us online? We're going to wait till we have Mr. Suhail Munir, who's going to be joining us online and, of course, giving his presentation with regards to the digital economy on Pakistan. But while we wait, of course, we're going to be also trying to understand what it is that we can expect from today's sessions and the way that we move forward. The aspect of digital economy, of course, is something that Suhail Saab will cover better. But it's important to understand initiatives such as the regulatory sandbox and other frameworks that have been developed to help the startup ecosystem of Pakistan. And this is something that we will be unlocking in our next panel session as well, delving deeper into the kind of regulatory practices and processes that helped put us forward in this direction and that help transform this initiative. And what else can we do when we move forward? It is also important in terms of the financial impact that it creates and in the way that it adds value to the startup ecosystem and enables them to grow further and test their products. And that's just, of course, one of the initiatives that has already taken place. And so we're going to be taking a look forward in terms of what else can be done and the way that the regulatory processes can help contribute to the startup ecosystem and help each other as we move forward through this process. We're also going to be taking a look at the digital payment ecosystem in our next presentations as well, and of course, the kind of systems that are important to give financial access and to have ease of doing business for people in general. And for that, of course, RAST is a very important aspect that has been developed, and the contributions by the State Bank of Pakistan are something that we're also going to be focusing on and emphasizing on exactly what can be the possibilities with regards to that. So that would be another aspect that we will be covering in one of our presentations today. We will also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, be having breakout sessions, and that is going to be something that we're going to be doing both in this hall and in Shalimar Hall, where we'll be having parallel sessions that will focus on different aspects of the startup ecosystem, from focusing on the ways in which we can have research and innovation in tech, to the ways in which that we can develop strategic partnerships and collaboration avenues that exist and that can be something that we can look towards. And then, of course, with reference to the decision makers and policy makers who can help each other and support them as we move forward in this direction. This, of course, is extremely important. And like I said earlier, it has been said many times before. But what it is that truly hinders us from doing that practically is something that we'll have to focus on and understand as we move forward. This is something, of course, that we've seen result in the kind of successes that we've spoken about and mentioned both yesterday and earlier today, but also in terms of the aspects in which our day-to-day lives are also impacted. And we see that in the kind of work that we do, in the kind of institutions that we engage with, that it is always the partnerships and the collaborations that actually help us work with each other and, of course, move towards success. We're going to be taking a look at all of these issues with regards to how we move forward and what it is that we can do for each other. And of course, in the various ways that we have our own expertise. And this is something that was also mentioned yesterday with reference to how we need to build upon the ways that we can support each other and in the ways that we can contribute and to understand what it is that are our strengths and how that we build on other strengths as well. So we're going to be, of course, taking a look at that as part of the expert opinion today as well. We're going to be connecting with Mr. Suhail Muni later on, but we're moving on to our next presentation, which is also on digital payment ecosystem and RAST, as I was telling you earlier about, by the State Bank of Pakistan. And this is something that is going to be presented by Mr. Suhail Jawad, who's the Executive Director, State Bank of Pakistan. And of course, he is somebody who brings decades of experience to banking, to treasury, policy, and regulation. And he's, of course, currently part of the Digital Financial Services Group as well, and has been at the forefront of driving transformation strategies and regulatory policies that have helped innovation in this particular sector. And he's, of course, very, very passionate about the work that he does as well. And RAST, as we all know, is something that has really contributed to the ways in which we can function better and in the ways, of course, that our startups can also function. So please welcome Mr. Suhail Jawad.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you to SECP for organizing this event on a very important topic of startups. पिछले कुछ सालों में पाकिस्तान ने स्टार्टअप्स के डोमेन में बहुत एक्टिविटी विटनेस की है और उसके हवाले से हमने ये देखा कि वीसीस की इंटरेस्ट पाकिस्तान में काफ़ी हुई और काफ़ी फंड्स के इनफ्लोज भी हुए और कुछ स्ट्रेस का टाइम आया, जाहिर है वहाँ पर आउटफ्लो भी होता है, लेकिन अब मेरे ख्याल में कि दोबारा से वो जो एक फ्लरी ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ थी वो दोबारा शुरू होने जा रही है। इस हवाले से SECP और SBP दोनों ने जो काम किया वो स्टार्टअप्स को ग्रो करने के लिए, स्टार्टअप्स को प्रमोट करने के लिए बड़ा अहम था। SECP का तो आप यहाँ देख ही रहे हैं कि इनोवेशन ऑफिस, उनका जो सैंड बॉक्स है, और इसके अलावा SECP ने बहुत सारी अपनी रेगुलेशंस को भी रिलैक्स किया है, जिससे न्यू स्टार्टअप्स को रजिस्टर करने में और अपनी सर्विसेज ऑफर करने में बहुत आसानी हुई है। स्टेट बैंक ने पिछले लेट्स से 10 साल में जो काम किया है, और इफ आई कैन रिव्यू दैट, अगर मैं, तो आई थिंक 3 एरियाज हैं जिसको स्टेट बैंक ने फोकस किया। पहला एरिया जो है वो न्यू नॉन बैंक एंटिटीज की एंट्री इनटू द फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम, बैंकिंग और पेमेंट्स, और उसमें आपने देखा होगा कि हमने सबसे पहले ब्रांचलेस बैंकिंग को इंट्रोड्यूस किया और दुकानदारों पे कुछ फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज को इनेबल करवाया। उसके बाद हमने PSP, PSOs की रेगुलेशंस की, एंड आइडिया यही था कि फॉरेन सेक्टर से लोग, प्राइवेट सेक्टर से लोग आए और गेटवेज पेमेंट्स के इस्टेब्लिश हों। और फिर 2019 में हमने EMIs की लाइसेंसिंग की कि नई फिनटेक्स जो नॉन बैंक्स की हों, अगर वो पेमेंट्स में काम करना चाहती हैं, दे कैन कम एंड दे कैन सेट अप शॉप। और फिर फाइनली 2022 में डिजिटल बैंक्स का रिजीम आया, और फिर अगेन आइडिया यही था कि नई फिनटेक्स, उनको हम कैसे इनेबल करें। तो पहला जो स्टेट बैंक का काम था वो इनेबलमेंट का था ऑफ न्यू एंटिटीज। दूसरा जो काम था, और वो बड़ा अहम है और दुनिया की कई कंट्रीज उस पर अभी भी मैं देखता हूँ कि वो स्ट्रगल कर रही है, वो था रिमोट ऑनबोर्डिंग का। अपने घर में बैठकर अकाउंट कैसे खोला जाए, और उसके लिए हमने नादरा के बायोमेट्रिक को कैपिटलाइज किया और स्टेट बैंक ने जो वॉलेट्स खोलने से काम शुरू किया। फिर हमने 2019 में मर्चेंट ऑनबोर्डिंग, रिमोट कैसे मर्चेंट्स के अकाउंट खुल सकते हैं, वो खोलने शुरू किए। और फिर कोविड पैंडेमिक के दौरान हमने एक बहुत बड़ा स्टेप लिया, और वो रोशन डिजिटल अकाउंट का था कि वो पाकिस्तानीज जो पाकिस्तान में हैं ही नहीं, जो मुल्क से बाहर हैं, उनका कैसे अकाउंट खोला जाए। और दैट वाज अ वंडरफुल एक्सपीरियंस इस हिसाब से कि SECP के साथ भी और कई एंटिटीज के साथ हमने काम किया कि किस तरह से नई प्रोडक्ट्स ऑफर की जा सकें। तीसरा जो, और उसके बाद फिर हमने कस्टमर की पूरी ऑनबोर्डिंग का आसान अकाउंट्स और ये सारा अब आप देख रहे हैं, तो उससे वो हमने enable किया। तीसरा जो एरिया जिसमें स्टेट बैंक ने काम किया वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की अपग्रेडेशन का था। स्टार्टिंग इन 2007 पाकिस्तान का रियल टाइम ग्रॉस सेटलमेंट सिस्टम लॉन्च हुआ जो होलसेल पेमेंट्स प्रोसेस करता है, और आज भी अराउंड एवरेज अगर मैं देखूं तो 4 से 5 ट्रिलियन रुपीस डेली वो सिस्टम प्रोसेस कर रहा है। इंशाल्लाह नेक्स्ट ईयर हम उसका नया एडवांस वर्जन लॉन्च करने जा रहे हैं जो ISO 2022 पे बिल्ड हो रहा है इस वक्त, और एडवांस स्टेज में है वो प्रोजेक्ट। रास्ट के बारे में मैं आपको बताऊंगा भी, लेकिन रास्ट को हमने इम्प्लीमेंट किया और वो भी ISO 2022 पे, और इसकी क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमी के लिए और स्पेसिफिकली स्टार्टअप्स के लिए, टेक बेस्ड स्टार्टअप्स के लिए क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है, उसकी बात थोड़ी सी आई विल डू इन माय प्रेजेंटेशन। और इसके अलावा प्राइवेट सेक्टर की तरफ से गेटवेज लगे, हमारे पास नए प्रोवाइडर्स आ गए, तो ये 3 एरियाज में स्टेट बैंक ने काम किया। तो विद दैट आई विल स्टार्ट माय प्रेजेंटेशन। जो ये पहली स्लाइड है, ये हमारा डिजिटल पेमेंट्स का जो इकोसिस्टम है वो आपको यहाँ पर नजर आ रहा है, और इसमें अगर आप देखें तो थोड़ा सा ये, तो ऊपर हमारे पास इंस्टेंट पेमेंट सिस्टम है जो रास्ट का है, और उसके नीचे आप देखें तो कोर में आरटीजीएस है, रियल टाइम ग्रॉस सेटलमेंट सिस्टम, जिससे सारे पेमेंट सिस्टम्स कनेक्ट हो रहे हैं। और बैंक्स, पेमेंट सिस्टम कंपनीज, ईएमआईज, ये सारी एंटिटीज इधर आरटीजीएस में आ रही हैं या रास के थ्रू आ रही हैं। इवन अब हम वन लिंक को भी इसमें कनेक्ट करें, विच इज द लार्जेस्ट प्लेयर इन द कंट्री। तो ये हमारा जो है इस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है डिजिटल पेमेंट्स का। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे आइएगा। उसके नतीजे में आज जो हमारा पेमेंट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हमारे सामने आया है, अगर आप इसको देखें तो ये हमारे पास जो है बैंक ब्रांचेस कोई 18,500 के करीब बैंक ब्रांचेस हैं, कोई 19,000 एटीएम्स हैं, और पीओएस मशीन्स, पॉइंट ऑफ सेल मशीनें जब ये कोविड शुरू हुआ था तो 40,000 थी, आज कोई 1,25,000 से ऊपर हो गई हैं। ब्रांचलेस बैंकिंग के एजेंट्स हैं 6 लाख से ऊपर, और 211 मिलियन के करीब अकाउंट्स हैं, जिनमें से कोई 85 से 88 मिलियन यूनिक अकाउंट्स और वॉलेट्स हैं, यानी ज़ाहिर है एक शख्स के पास 2 या 3 अकाउंट्स भी हो सकते हैं। तो ये तो वो टच पॉइंट्स हैं जो फिजिकली, जो कि फेस टू फेस इंटरेक्शन हो रही। लेकिन अगर नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे आप देखें तो हमारे पास काफी पिछले कुछ सालों में चेंजेस आई हैं इन डिजिटल पेमेंट्स। कोई 59 मिलियन से ऊपर हमारे पास वो एप्स हैं जो ब्रांचलेस बैंकिंग प्लेयर्स ने इशू की हुई हैं, 59 मिलियन, ठीक है। इसके अलावा कोई 19 मिलियन से ऊपर मोबाइल बैंकिंग एप्स हैं जो बैंकों ने इशू की हैं। और इसके अलावा अगर आप देखें तो हमारे पास 12 मिलियन इंटरनेट बैंकिंग के पोर्टल्स के थ्रू ट्रांजैक्शंस होती हैं। क्यूआर कोड अब बहुत ज़्यादा लगने लगा है, और उसमें हमारे पास जो है वो कोई 5 लाख तो अभी तक क्यूआर कोड्स मर्चेंट्स के ऊपर लग गए, और उसमें डेली एक्टिविटी है और उसमें काफ़ी चेंज आ रहा है रास्ट के क्यूआर की वजह से। और एक जो चेंज आई है, और मैंने उस पर एक अलग स्लाइड भी इनको कहा था बना दें, वो ई कॉमर्स की है। ई कॉमर्स ना सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में नॉन कैश ई कॉमर्स की बात कर रहा हूँ, वो बढ़ रहा है, बल्कि पिछले 1-2 साल से हम देख रहे हैं कि अब कार्ड से ई कॉमर्स स्विच हो रहा है टू मोबाइल एप्स। अब ऐप बेस्ड ई कॉमर्स भी काफी हो रही है। आई थिंक उस पर आगे एक स्लाइड और है, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे आएगा। अच्छा, ये 30 जून की पोजीशन है, और इसमें अगर आप देखें तो हमारे पास कोई 84% ट्रांजैक्शंस जो बैंकिंग सिस्टम के थ्रू हो रही हैं, 84% ट्रांजैक्शंस रिटेल की वो डिजिटली हो रही हैं, ठीक है। 84% ट्रांजैक्शंस जो हैं ये डिजिटली हो रही हैं, और अगर आप देखें तो 16% ओटीसी है, ओवर द काउंटर। अच्छा, इन्होंने कहा है कि इंग्लिश में बात करूं। आई थॉट कि हम सब उर्दू बोलने वाले हैं, so we should speak in Urdu, but I'll switch to English because they want me to switch to English. So 84% transactions are digital and 16% are over the counter. And if you see, compare since COVID, FY20, we have moved from 55% to 84%, which is, I think, a significant change. So what are the key trends here? If you see on the next slide, first, I think branchless banking wallet players have played a very important role in the move towards the digitization of retail transactions. And the volume has increased by 58%, and the value has increased by 119% just in last year, FY23 to FY24. Again, mobile transactions via mobile banking apps are also increasing. Most of them are fund transfer transactions, and they have increased by 70% by volume and almost double, 95% by value. Again, internet banking portals are being used, e-wallets. So these are the wallets that are issued by EMIs, and they are relatively new, but I'm glad to report that during the past 2 years, we have seen that almost 4 million e-money wallets have been issued, and they are offering new transactions and new. And 95% of transactions that are done by EMI wallets are end-to-end digital. So you don't have cash out or cash in there. If you move to the next slide, again, the trend on e-commerce, which I was speaking about earlier, and if you see that by volume, there has been a significant increase during the past year. And similarly, by value, you can see that now app-based e-commerce transactions are surpassing card-based transactions. We're still behind cash on delivery, but this trend is catching. And I think this is something that our new tech-based wallet providers and our tech-based e-commerce providers need to really look at. And I think this is the reason is that most of our population in Pakistan consists of young people, women who transit from their homes, and that is why we are seeing that shift. And with Rast new services, inshallah, I hope that this will further improve. So this was the good news. So let's move to the bad news. So the next slide. So what about the 16% by volume transactions that were done over the counter? If we dig deeper, we'll see that the by value, by rupee amount, 83% of transactions are still over the counter. Only 17% are digital. So the 84% by volume, if you convert it by value, you'll see that it's only 17%. So this means that a large chunk of our economic transactions are being done on face-to-face. So we call it bank, or we call it whatever we want to call it. So last year, about 448, let's say 450 trillion were transacted using branches. And out of that, I think 100 trillion was cash. And so 20% was cash deposits and withdrawals. 60% was fund transfers. So I give you my check and you go and you deposit it in your account, and the fund transfer happens, but still happening through check. It's not some portal or something like that. And if you see the rise in this number is not very significant during the past 5 years. So this is disheartening. This is the reason of the problems that we have. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that in Pakistan, I think despite all the good things that we have done, cash is still the king. Cash still the king. Although the power of the king is declining, we all know about that, but it's still the king. Currency in circulation is almost 9.3, 9.4 trillion rupees, which is one of the highest in the world. Our SME sectors, MSME sectors, their digitization is very, very low. And I think that's one problem. And we have had discussions with SECP also on this. How can we make our corporate sector, especially the smaller SMEs and MSMEs, move towards digitization? What should we do as a country to make that move? Because I think that if we don't do that, we'll still be stuck with this 83% cash. I think banks' business models, banks don't like this when I say this, but their business model is supports holding funds. That's what banking is all about. So, and we are talking about instant payments, moving to Rast and all. Our digital payment systems has a lot of frictions, very difficult to use. Its interface is difficult to use. Our apps, if you have to make a payment, you have to, like, our in State Bank, we say that there should be 1, 2, 3 taps and you should be able to make your transaction. That's not the case. So you have to wait you have to register for a beneficiary, you have to wait for an OTP, and that OTP via email and via SMS, and all in the name of risk management. Our digital payment system is expensive. Our checks are usually free and our cash is definitely free, but digital payments are not free. And whenever we say that we want to make it free, people don't like it. Our supply side doesn't like free transactions. They want to make money out of those transactions. Of course, the fear of documentation and taxation and what will happen if we do our transactions digitally, then we don't want to do that. So that is a given reality. That's the fault in our stars, and I think we'll have to live with that and find a way of addressing that issue. And of course, I think the trust on digital payments is still low. Of course, because of the digital frauds and cybersecurity issues. But our supply side is also not investing in IT. We are not investing in proactive tech-based solutions like uh, AI and machine learning and all. And our IT services are still expensive, still expensive. We have this HR problem in IT services. And so while on one hand, we celebrate the freelancing services, but that freelancing is actually raising the cost of providing services in Pakistan. And of course, it seems our banks and some of our corporates, not some, but many corporates are not willing to innovate, to come up with new solutions. So what should we do? So the next slide is something that I'll, of course, close to my heart, which is RAST. So what is RAST? I'm sure most of you knows, but there are many in Pakistan and a majority still don't know what RAST is. Some people think it's like a wallet or some sort of an account, or so people still don't know what RAST is. But if you go to the next slide, RAST is built on a new standard, which is called ISO 20022. And it's very important for our startup sector and for our corporates to understand. Our traditional digital payment system is built on card system, 8583 standard, which is the previous generation system. But ISO 20022 is something that the world is now adopting. It's a global standard. I was in an international conference a couple of months ago, and somebody said that ISO 20022 is the future language of payments. And I take it one step forward and I say ISO 20022 is the future of our businesses. Our businesses, it's like playing on AstroTurf. If you keep on playing on grass, you are at the bottom of the hockey league because the world has moved to AstroTurf. So ISO 20022 digitization, it's like playing on AstroTurf. You have to upgrade the way your businesses operate on new APIs. And it's a global standard. It has got context attached to a payment. So payment is no more a debit or credit. You can actually connect your invoices, your challans, your bills, so the entire context travels. And that actually removes the need of reconciliations to a large extent. So that's I think the accountants and CFOs would really appreciate this feature. Of course, straight-through processing directly connected to state bank accounts, and we hope that this will ensure adoption. So if you move to the next slide. So this is what is happening globally. This is how major countries and most of the countries are now making their move towards ISO 20022. So now what is the best way to do that? Either you upgrade your RTGS to an ISO 20022 standard, or you have a retail payment system. India, I think, did their RTGS, they upgraded it to ISO 20022 in 2013. We were lucky, and I think we are lucky, because we have a retail system, RAS, which is built on this standard, which gives an opportunity to our businesses to connect and take advantage of this new. Inshallah, next year RTGS will also be ISO 20022 compliant. So Pakistan would be one of those few countries whose both large value and retail payment systems would be ISO 20022 compliant. And I think that's a huge opportunity that our businesses should take advantage of. So very quickly, I know I'm running out of time. I'm a bit over time. So if you go to the next, so we all know the RAS use cases. First was bulk payments, and bulk payments is something that our corporates needs to use. How do you transfer your salaries, your vendor payments, your dividend payments, and CDC is here. And I think they've done a wonderful job in ensuring that our non-banking sector moves to RAST corporate by digitizing dividends, by digitizing AMCs. And they are also working on some of the other initiatives, and I'm sure that they'll talk about it. PPP is again something different. So you use a mobile number and you register it and you send payments directly. And then the last one is person to merchant payments. And I don't like this merchant payments. It's actually for everyone. So what we've done is we have standardized the QR code in Pakistan. So there is one QR code on RAS, regardless of what app you have. For scanning, for paying, you can actually transfer funds using that QR code. Next slide. So this is, so on the bottom, this is the adoption rate of RAS. So the first trillion rupees was, I think, achieved in 336 days, almost a year. And recently we processed 21 trillion on RAS, and it took 16 days to process the last trillion. And I think so every month we are targeting of processing additional 2 trillion rupees on this system. The average transactions per day on RAS is 2.5 million. I think this number will very soon it will change, because now I think for the last 1 month we have been processing around 3.5 million transactions a day, and this number is actually going up every day. And if you compare the 3 years of RAS, of course, this number is increasing. But still, 99% of RAS transactions are P2P. People are using their mobiles to transfer funds. Now, what is the purpose? Just to transfer funds? For e-commerce, for buying on shops? It could be anything. We don't have access to that data. But you can still use, majority is still P2P. So this P2M or QR has not started trickling in yet. And I'm sure once that starts happening, I think that would be the tipping point for Pakistan in its journey for digitization. So quickly, I already talked about QR code, which is interoperable. And next slide. But what is more important is the last service. It's not the last. I'm sure it's not the last, but this service is called PISP, Payment Initiation Service Providers. These are third-party fintechs who are not banks or who don't have an account with State Bank. And what we are offering is that these entities can directly come and plug into RAS. The account would still be with the bank, but they can access the payment services directly. We recently completed a sandbox with one of the fintechs, Hubble, and 3 banks. And in that, we tested how this transaction will actually work. So the fintech, on behalf of its customer, should be able to request payments from other customers, and the bank should say yes. So the key component of this service is customer consent architecture. I still remember when I heard this term about 7 or 8 years ago in an international conference, and I thought, this customer consent architecture is not possible in Pakistan. But alhamdulillah, I think we have this now. So customers can actually tell their banks in their system that please register my consent. You will be receiving request of payments from this entity ABC, and whenever you receive a request of this much amount, please pay from my account. So that is something that is PISP, and of course the banks doesn't like it. They absolutely hate this service. So let's see how we make it work, because we have to make it work. This is for Pakistan that we have to make it work. So lastly, and I'll just quickly, since this is about startup, so what is from State Bank side, what is our expectations and our advice to startups who are venturing into this area? I think first, there are many unaddressed use cases in this country. SMEs, MSMEs, merchants, B2B supply chains. I think that needs to be digitized. And I don't think it's only the banks who can do it. So we look towards this new tech enablement. Second, what I've seen from licensing of EMIs and PSPs and PSOs during the past 10 years, now it's 10 years, that have a good and sustainable business plan. Just don't focus on customer acquisition, mindless customer acquisition, because we understand that customer acquisition gets you good valuations from the VCs. But I think it's very important, because if you have a good and sustainable business plan, that will help you in time of stress. Third is focus on UI UX. Our UI UX is pathetic. The reason that I'm speaking in English is an example that it's pathetic. I'm not even speaking in our own language. So we need to upgrade the way we interact with 97% of the people out there. They are unserved, so nobody's thinking about them. So focus on how you interact with them. And we call that UI and UX. Of course, new technologies, machine learning, artificial intelligence, even blockchain, that needs, and I think we must appreciate SECP for their sandbox. We need to have a mechanism whereby new entities should be able to test these new technologies, but it's very important to use these technologies for customer service and for ensuring compliance as well. compliance of regulators. State Bank, there is a lot of negativity about State Bank, that State Bank doesn't do this, doesn't do that, but State Bank is a regulator of financial system. Compliance for us is very important. Financial stability is very important, but we think if we both from regulator side and from the tech side, if we can adopt the new technologies, that would make the compliance easier. So with that, that's all from my side. Thank you for listening and have a pleasant event. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much for that presentation. But Suhail Saab, I'd like to actually invite you once again on stage because we'd like to give you a token of appreciation. So if you can please kindly join us once again on stage, and I'll request Mr. Abdul Rahman Baraij to please come on stage as well to present that token of appreciation to Suhail Jawad Saab. Here is okay. Can we please have the shield? Thank you very much once again, Suhail Jawad Saab, for that presentation and for helping us understand better what RAST is all about and the kind of efforts and initiatives that are needed as part of this infrastructure, and of course, what all State Bank of Pakistan has been doing in this regard. Next, we have the presentation by Dr. Suhail Munir, and he's joined us online, and he will be talking about Pakistan's digital stack and helping us understand the initiatives that can be taken with regards to digital economy and infrastructure, and the kind of transformative policies and strategies that we can implement to make this a better future for the startup industry, and of course, to enable these initiatives to take form in the country as well. So, Dr. Suhail Munir, I hope you've joined us and you can hear me.
I can certainly hear you.
Dr. Suhail, are you with us?
Yes, I can hear you. If you
Great, we can hear you as well. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope you're enjoying a good session. Let me tell you where I am. First, I want to do some. Yes, I'm right now. Behind me is Bhurban, and we are having a conference of Pakistan Digital Stack here. So just wanted to show you guys that. Now is visible. Please enable sharing. My sharing is disabled. If you can please enable it. Organizers, if you can please enable my sharing. It is now. Thank you. Just a little bit of the logistics. Just give me a second. Okay, is my screen visible to everyone? Is my screen visible? Organizers, if you can please let me know. Yeah, I think it is. So basically, I'm going to talk about the Pakistan digital stack. Rather, it's basically the vision of a digital public infrastructure for Pakistan to enable digital nation Pakistan. The mantra is to digitally enable Pakistan for her citizens. A lot of this work happened. We have been, with the help of Karandas and other stakeholders, we have been benchmarking a lot of other nations, the top 15 countries in the UN Government Index, countries relevant to us like India, Brazil, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, and certain other jurisdictions like Dubai as a jurisdiction, EU, NEOM. Looked at a lot of recommendations, and we've been engaging with a lot of thought leaders globally. Dr. Aisha, who was the founding DG of Smart Dubai Government, Sim Sekud, the CIO of Estonia, and many other thought leaders that we have been engaged with. Along with Karandas, we developed a report earlier this year on envisioning the Pakistan digital stack. Before I even take out your mobiles, please scan this. I want to ask the audience, what do you think about what is a digital nation? Just take 30 seconds, take out your mobiles, please write. Whatever comes to your mind, put it there. Few words, few terms. While you guys are scanning it, I hope everybody has scanned it. I'm not getting any feedback, so I'll just go to results, see what's going on. What do people think about it? Inshallah, I like that. Progress, 4 responses so far. Future, progress, blockchain, automation, no human intervention, automated processes, digital first payments, definitely, digital first businesses, comfort, human, digital initiative, connected at all times, progress, security, reliability, efficiency, no paperwork, definitely eliminating paper, meaning completely making business, your interactions, your journeys within living in Pakistan completely digital. That's true digital transformation. Perfect. Hopefully soon, great, inshallah, and hopefully soon, that's what we're really looking at. While you guys are doing that, I'll get back to my presentation. Okay, why are we doing this? What is the problem statement? So I hope everybody would agree with me. We have a very vibrant, digitally savvy, mobile savvy young population. 2/3 of our population is youth, but they are disengaged. They are facing a laggard economy, an inefficient government. So their daily life is cumbersome. Forget their digital life, even in the physical realm. The economic activity is not inclusive. Government touch points are outdated. I see these as 3 key grievances that this youth will have, and that's my target. Other countries in the world, they've adopted this concept of a digital nation. A country where rural and urban citizens, governments and citizens and businesses thrive and live in a digital society, interact with each other to generate value for all stakeholders. That to me is what is a digital nation. So when I look at what are the elements of this digital nation, I look at 3 elements to address: society, economy, and governance. I like it or not, I am living in a digital society. And the idea of a digital society is that the entire demographics can not only access digital, but avail digital. We know that the impact that digital transformation will have to the agri sector. In Africa, the numbers are 35 to 40% increase in value by digitizing the sectors. Certain startups in Pakistan has looked at rice and wheat, and the impact is 35 to 40% by digitizing that sector. My farmer, does he have access to digital? And if he has access, can he actually avail digital? So that digital literacy, that's part of the digital society. To create that society where people can benefit from digital and be safe in it, that's digital society. Digital economy, you're digitizing your local economy, as well as you are enabling people to benefit and to actually thrive in the digital native economy. And then it's about digital governance, not government. Digital government is a part of digital governance. See, to me, government is a service provider. It has to provide services proactively and efficiently to citizens and businesses, and it is a facilitator of creating those services. It is to enable you, the startup ecosystem, the private sector ecosystem. That's the role of the government. So, and you look at 6 dimensions when you're making anything smart: governance, be transparent, living, quality of life, your environment. The best part of the 26th Amendment that Pakistan has passed is that now sustain environment, clean environment is my fundamental right. I love that. Economy, innovative economic conditions, opportunity for entrepreneurs, increased global competitiveness, and mobility. Mobility is not only transportation, it's about mobility of ideas also. And people, your culture, a vibrant culture, vibrant society. That's the dimensions of a digital nation that you have to work for. We see that the impact of digital, for every dollar invested in digital, GDP has grown by $20 on the average globally. World Bank has said that for a 10% increase in the digital economy index, the GDP has gone up by 2.6% and employment 1.1%. This is a global number. For Middle East, it's almost 2.8%. By that, I mean, if a country is at 70 and it goes to 60, and a country at 60, the difference is that 2.6% in GDP on the average. In Dubai, we have seen data sharing initiatives alone have added 10.4 billion dirham to the Dubai economy every year. For smart services investment, 4.3 billion in government expenditure was saved. Dubai launched a paperless initiative 12 December 2021 that to interact with Dubai government, government will not issue arrest or accept any piece of paper. It has eliminated 325 million pieces of paper annually. That is 40,000 trees. Last time I counted, that was more than the number of trees in Dubai. Maybe it was 39,000. Okay. And where is Pakistan? Harvard Business Review has done a study. This is where Pakistan is right now, at the bottom left at this stage. This is digital momentum. What is the digital evolution momentum and the state? This is where Pakistan is right now. Much below Bangladesh, much below anybody else, just above Nigeria and Ethiopia. The current state, Alhamdulillah, we did great in the e-government index. Last time we were 150. This year it was 136. Every place else, the numbers are pretty bad. Ease of doing business, ease of doing business, 108 out of 190. That was in 2020 when World Bank discontinued this. Knowledge economy, 69 out of 132. Government GovTech maturity, 106 out of 198. Open data, 121 out of 195. Not a good situation. I don't know if you will disagree with me. To me, digital is a national emergency right now. So, what's next? Develop the digital nation Pakistan concept. Adopt it to create an inclusive and economically beneficial digital future for the youth. Vision is a digitally empowered Pakistan where citizens will experience delightful interaction, businesses thrive in a frictionless environment, and government serves proactively. 3 objectives: ease of living, ease of doing business, ease of availing government services. Improve the quality of life, unlock the economic potential, and create a responsive, transparent, citizen-centric service delivery. Citizen centricity is going to be the key. You are not going to create this for the government, but actually for the citizens. Digitally enable Pakistan for citizens. My advice, look at 5-year strategic goals. Make sure that 70% of the population across all demographics can avail digital, not only access, but benefit from it within 5 years. Very doable. 15% contribution of digital economy to the national GDP. Countries like Saudi are between 18 and 20. A lot of European countries are around 20 to 25. Doable. If we make that as a national emergency, if we do a focus. 100% paperless government. Literally mean completely digital transformed. All citizen services, all interactions, all business services and all journeys rather, citizen business journeys to be completely digital. Very doable. There is always going to be a long tail. When we say 100%, we definitely understand that there is going to be a long tail, but we work at making everything completely paperless. So with that, I've developed a framework. I won't go over it because I know there's less time, but the idea is across the 3 elements, you look at the 6 dimensions, and then you look at certain pillars: society and people, technology, infrastructure, politics, governance, economics and businesses, and sustainability. And across each pillar, one approach. Let's take the top 3 challenges. I would have different set of challenges. You will come up with different set of challenges. Let's look at the top 3 challenges and start solving those problems. That is a framework which I've been proposing. Now, what are we looking at? Go to the next generation of government, 5.0. I'm sorry, I'm rushing because I know there's less time. Talk about personalized, anticipatory, and citizen-centric government services. The model is not business model-centric. Shift the mindset to citizen model. Look at a whole of government approach. I cannot just digitize FBR or SECP alone. No journey is with one organization. You have to look at across the government and build a digital public infrastructure, which is what I'm going to discuss next. Change the mindset for doing digital to being digital. Don't employ digital technologies to improve your experiences. Create digital native human-centric, citizen-centric experiences. Use advanced technologies. That's the idea behind it. My mentor, Dr. Aisha, I loved what her said. She was in January. She's the DG of Digital Dubai Authority, the founding DG. In January, she was with us as a Karandas workshop in Islamabad. And she said it should be a people-centric approach, focusing and promoting happiness and using technology to enhance the quality of life. That's the vision I look at. What is a digital stack? When a lot of countries, a lot of you are techies here, so you create these building blocks when you are going to create this. So the core part of the building block is what the governments have to enable. Somebody has to enable that. Data exchange layer, State Bank, FPR, NADRA, others can actually engage these in a decentralized way under a governance structure, complying with the privacy, share trust in a trusted manner, exchange data with my consent because I am the owner of my data. Then the digital identity. NADRA's identity identifies me in the physical realm. I exist as a person in the physical world without any NADRA ID. But that NADRA ID, my entry in NADRA's register, gives me an identity, gives me trust that you can deal with me. In the digital world, I exist. I need a digital identity so that you can trust me in my interactions. And it could be anchored to the NADRA's ID, a credential for me to exist, be trusted in the digital world. That's a digital identity. And certainly, Sohail Saab before me has discussed a lot about payments, what Rast has delivered. It's a tremendous thing that they have delivered. So these are the three core components of a digital stack. And you build use cases and journeys on top of it for all your beneficiaries, citizens, businesses, government itself. India was the classic example of when they went ahead with India Stack, which has the presenceless layer, which is the identity, paperless layer, eKYC, and then you have a cashless layer, which is like Rast. And on top of it, there's a consent layer. You need to share my data. I am the one who owns it. You have to get my permission. So I have to provide you consent. And this was a ground, the impact that India Stack has done in India is tremendous. India has taken this approach. They have delivered their stack, ID, payments, consent, signature. This is the part of the India Stack. I'm rushing through it because I know I'm short on time. And India did something interesting. While they build the key building blocks of the stack, they started building sub-stacks. I need to have health records. Why channel those separately? Channel that as a sub-stack, as a building block for the health sector. India built health stack, learning stack, and agri stack. And what happened? This India Stack is now one of the biggest source of India's soft power in the world. When India assumed G20 presidency last year, 10 countries have so far signed MOUs with India to build India Stack and to deploy India Stack there. 1.2 billion people. Cost of have adopted digital ID in India, 80% banking penetration. Look at this for you startups. 99.4% cost reduction in KYC. It used to be $25, now it is 15 cents. I mean, what a tremendous difference it has created. It has created employment direct for 4.9 million people, and in the core digital sector, and 62.4 million workers employed in digitally disrupted sectors. This is a success that India have seen. India digital economy has grown 2.4 times faster than the traditional economy since India Stack was introduced. Nandan Nilekani, he was the first chairman of Aadhaar, and he basically made this statement, like he was chairman of Infosys, that the ecosystem of the companies that have created value around India Stack's DPI runs into $100 billion. That's the impact that it has. Now, digital public infrastructure. would mean the physical infrastructure, the core building blocks and the platforms, and of the most important part, it's not about tech, it's about governance frameworks, privacy, security, digital standards and policies that have to be built. So when you talk about DPI, there's connectivity, the cloud infrastructure, resilience, the core stack, and analytics and insight capabilities. That's together is what you call a DPI. The focus is to have DPI built as a public good, a resource that is non-excludable, non-rivalrous, that will be available to everybody. You look at inclusion, you look at interoperability, you create value for the public. It should be open standards and come up with long-term sustainable business models. What happened on 22nd of September 2024 was groundbreaking, in my opinion. As big as SDGs, in my personal opinion. 22 September 2024, 193 countries of the UN adopted the UN Global Digital Compact. This is, in my opinion, as groundbreaking as the SDGs. Highlights are, and Pakistan is a signatory, they have committed to universal connectivity, human rights in digital spaces, protecting your privacy, data protection and privacy, inclusive digital economy, cyber security and digital trust, and digital public good. This is what we have committed to. 193 fellow countries, entire world has committed to that, along with AI regulation and AI ethics. This is very groundbreaking, and this is centered around DPI. The benefits of DPI, of course, is you improve individual welfare, you facilitate government services, and most importantly, it enables private business and innovation. Based on this, we have proposed and looked at what is a Pakistan stack that we should build, Pakistan digital stack, around identity, exchange, and consent, payments and service delivery. This payments, Sohail Saab already mentioned about Rust, consent, exchange, and identity. There's a project that World Bank has funded. It's called Deep Digital Economy Enhancement Project that is now really kicking off. And we are looking at coming up with substacks. There's no right answer for Pakistan, health, agriculture, social protection. So all digital investments in digitization of these sectors go in as a substack that you build as building blocks for everyone. It could be land and real estate, smart cities, revenue. So, I mean, education. I don't say that this is the exhaustive list. This may not be the right answer. You may come up with a better, but the whole concept of a substack is what we are and should be adopting. And then you actually look at, you want to create at the end, it's not about a tech, it's about service delivery. You have to create delightful journeys for all of yours, the personas. So, be it that bureaucrat in Islamabad, be it that investor, be it the CPEC official, be it that college student Isha, be it a farmer, a small shopkeeper in Khanewal, I have to look at creating journeys, experiences for them, which are free of friction, look at their needs and address those needs. That's the whole idea that we should be looking at. So this rural worker, she wants, subsidy to collect subsidy from government. What are the pain points that she has, and how can digital and cashless payments, how can that solve it? Or this, and now we say, okay, when we talk about Murid Hussain, what are his needs? How do each component of a stack, how is that going to enable it? And that's how we kind of try to design this and build this. I told you about the digital economy enhancement project that is going on. It's taking whole of government approach. It is addressing policies in the legal framework. The key part of it is the ID and the exchange layer. And we are also coming up, the great news for you guys is, there's this whole idea of a citizen engagement and innovation lab, where enable open APIs, enable open data, bring in the innovation ecosystem, even create accelerator programs to fund it. I mean, the program is just launching, there's money allocated for this, and there is going to be a lot of, excitement around it, where private sector, the startup ecosystem is going to engage. Of course, all of the key stakeholders, SECP and others are key part of this. When we look at the stakeholder ecosystem in Pakistan, of course, we have one issue, but kind of the complexity, which is the federal government and the provincial government. A lot of things that we want to do are provincial subjects. We have the data custodians, NADRA, SECP, State Bank, FPR, PTA. We are looking at all sectors and all stakeholders, but solving problems for these end users, your citizens, tourists, techies, businesses, investors, the citizen developer. This is the most important part of this overall ecosystem. The small companies, the private sector, for them to build on DPI, to create services. Smart services are not possible without the citizen developer. And of course, your government entities and service providers and the industrial complex, utilities, and private sector. So based on this, when we saw this, we did a study of the top countries in the world. Out of the top 15 countries in EGDI, 9 of them, the teal ones, have a supra-ministerial body to lead digital. It's a no-brainer. A Ministry of IT has a certain mandate. It cannot go across the government. So a supra-ministerial body led by the chief executive of the jurisdiction can only make digital happen. Otherwise, that's not going to happen. So we saw that. That was a great learning for us. So based on this, the Digital Nation Pakistan initiative was launched. Even the Prime Minister kind of approved that. And the idea is we launched the Digital Nation Pakistan initiative, focusing on society, economy, and governance, establish a supra-ministerial body to be led by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, including all the chief ministers, develop a national digital master plan, kind of lead everything with that master plan, transform the missions and visions of the ministries and department to align with the national digital agenda, establish the Pakistan digital stack as the key component, plan all significant sectoral digital investments as part of the digital stack and substacks, create an autonomous body, Pakistan Digital Authority, to act as the digital regulator in making this happen, and basically create sustainable business models to do this. This can't be done on aids, this can't be done on government funding, while maintaining public good, not being a profit center, to create sustainable long-term business models to do that. That's the initiative about. The legislation to accomplish this, called the Pakistan Digital Nation Pakistan Act, is in process. It's now with the cabinet and parliament going through the whole legislative process. The idea is that there is going to be a National Digital Commission once it is approved. And if it is approved, of course, the parliament has not consented to it yet. It will be headed by the Prime Minister, that includes all the chief ministers and the key federal ministers, State Bank, NADRA, SECP, FBR, PTA, their top people, their governors and chairpersons. That is going to give the strategy and policy guidance and mandate strategic initiatives. There will be a Pakistan Digital Authority to kind of deliver on this, to lead the digital master plan, and it was going to report on progress. There is going to be a digital master plan, a strategic blueprint to transform Pakistan into a digital nation. The authority will develop and ensure compliance. The commission will approve it. There will be federal entities. The authority will give them compliance, ensure their compliance. And for the provincial entities, the compliance will be ensured through the respective chief ministers. And the federal government will give policy direction. So that's the overall structure that is being proposed. What is the master plan? It's basically the strategic blueprint for digital across all government. Provinces, federation will kind of work through this. It will have the strategy, it will have the user experience, the citizen experience, it will have the sectoral digital transmission plans, your economy development plan, your architecture, the governance standards, your regulatory compliance framework. So that is basically, it's a function, which is the digital master plan, that is going to govern this and take these things forward. Now, while we are talking, right now I'm in Bhurban, we are having a design thinking session to come up with a universe of use cases. Federal government entities, provincial government entities, and most importantly, a lot of private sector ecosystem. There are 60 plus people. I think half of the 20 of them are from the startups and the private sector. So we are telling everybody we are working, we are having a lot of fun looking around in Bhurban. So the thing is that the vision of digital is only going to happen when the startups, when the citizen developer, when the youth, when the private sector gets involved, and if the government enables them. If the government decides it has to act as a government, it has to play the role of a government, not be an enabler, this is not going to happen. This digital emergency will stay and things will get worse. If we decide and go through with this commitment, digital is the future. It is going to make a significant change for Pakistan. I was there when Qaid-e-Azam said this: the digital nation Pakistan needs you, the youth, and Pakistan digital stack is going to enable you. I was actually personally there when Qaid-e-Azam said that. Thank you very much. Presenters.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suhail Munir, for joining us and giving us this detailed presentation. We have a token of appreciation for you as well, but of course, we'll be delivering that to you later. In the meanwhile, of course, you can continue to have fun in Bourbon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be moving on to our next speaker, and we're going to be setting the stage for our panel session, which is going to focus on the SECP's regulatory sandbox journey and the kind of successes and lessons that we have learned along the way, and what is going to be the future of this particular initiative, and how do we move forward from that. And to set the stage for this particular session, we've been joined online by Dr. Alexander Postolites, who will be setting the stage and shedding some light on the role of the Innovation Office, the regulatory sandboxes, and the disruption driven through these initiatives across the globe. Let me introduce Dr. Alexander. He's a research associate at the Cambridge Centre for Alternate Finance, Judge Business School, Cambridge, UK, supporting the team's research on regulatory innovation. He has 20 years of experience in consultancy in a range of projects and EU-funded projects as well. He also has experience in policy through his position in the National Economic Council of the President of Cyprus from the years 2013 to 2017, and as an economist at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. He's also passionate for capacity building and university education, with a huge experience in teaching a range of topics, including economics and entrepreneurship courses. He has also been a trainer in the Cambridge FinTech and Regulatory Innovation Executive Education course since 2020, and his current research interests lie in the regulatory policy response to the emerging financial technology. Dr. Alexander has been waiting for us since 6 a.m., which is about an hour. So we apologize for the delay, Dr. Alexander, and we thank you for your patience. And you'll also have to forgive me if I butchered your last name. My apologies. Can you hear me, Dr. Alexander?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Great. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I was asked to set up the panel by really saying what we know as Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance in terms of regulatory sandboxes. For those who might not be aware, the Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance has been established since 2015, and its core activities are capacity building and education, research, a lot of it related to regulatory sandboxes, and our digital tools. And I'm very proud and happy to present at least two of our digital tools here today. So first of all, I think we need to set the scene up for the regulators. Understanding that we are in a startup conference, sometimes it's good to think about the regulatory perspective as well. And regulators understand that financial technology provides benefits to consumers. And there's two examples there that you can see how real benefits have been provided to consumers through financial technology. So they're very positive about it. And in fact, we do surveys of regulators across the world, and regulators globally consider the adoption of financial services, financial inclusion, and market development. They're generally positive, but they're particularly positive about this ability of financial technology to promote their national interests. However, at the same time, regulators are aware of emerging or heightened risks, and we heard from previous speakers what some of those risks are. Again, asking regulators globally, they would point out fraud, unfair practice, and technology unreliability as being their main concerns when they're interacting with financial technology. So regulators need to respond to this. They need to respond. They are aware there's benefits. They are aware there's risks. How do they respond? Well, I really like this approach by the World Bank, which tries to put the response into, if you want, 4 boxes. These boxes are not mutually exclusive, but they describe, if you want, how regulators respond to financial technology and some startups like yourselves. The first response is to wait and see what happens, and then ask for more information. The second is to test and learn by providing, for example, some sort of letter to a particular financial innovation that gives space for that industry to grow and then learn from it. What we're going to talk more today is about regulatory innovation initiatives. And these are activities made by financial authorities to allow them to interact with financial technology firms substantially more than previously. And regulatory sandboxes are probably the quintessential regulatory innovation initiative. And of course, laws and reforms can take place that provide new laws, different perspective for a regulation in the fintech space. Now, what are these regulatory innovation initiatives? If the aim is support of regulators to new firms and innovation, usually what's established is an innovation office. The innovation office is a dedicated function within a regulator that engages and provides regulatory clarification to innovators. It's very helpful, but it can be quite limited in terms of providing support based on what the regulator rules and regulations and laws say. A more engaged approach is live testing environment, which could be a regulatory sandbox where innovative firms can join a regulatory sandbox and actually test their products. And we have seen recently the development, oh, apologies for that, I think I jumped one, of a synthetic testing environment as well, of a digital sandbox where earlier stage startups can engage through synthetic data and provide proof of concept. So what are regulatory sandboxes across the world? Sandboxes can have different, we have the one name, but they can have different approaches. Most are to test products of financial firms, especially innovative financial firms and startups. But there are others that might test policies. And as mentioned, there's also digital sandboxes that are moving towards provision of synthetic data sets for earlier proof of concept interaction. This allows fintech firms to go into a consumer earlier, knowing that they are within a regulatory framework of a test, and allows regulators to really understand what is going on in a particular market and understand the business model, and then provide more regulatory direction and certainty. I will leave quite a lot about regulatory sandboxes to be discussed by my colleague, Tom Ward, who's also an expert on this field and has been part of the FCA regulatory sandbox. Now, what we do to support those who want to know more about regulatory innovation initiatives, we've done a range of research. All of the research you see there is publicly available on our website. Our research focused both in the private market and growth of fintech, but really here I've picked the ones that relate more with regulatory innovation initiatives. We train authorities about regulatory innovation authorities and fintech more broadly, as well as private market actors. And we create dedicated tools to support financial authorities in their regulatory innovation initiatives. The first is the Regulatory Knowledge Exchange. It's like a closed community for regulators to interact and discuss. The second is the Global Regulatory Innovation Dashboard, also known as GRID, which we will see some results. And the third is the Cambridge Centre Regulatory Innovation Assessment Tool, known as RIAD, which I will show, which is available to all regulators who are in the Regulatory Knowledge Exchange to test what is the best approach in them dealing with a particular financial innovation in their jurisdiction. So using GRID, you can get a map of the innovation offices, and we really see a very large growth of innovation offices across the last 5 years. However, their growth has slowed down, and we see far more regulatory sandboxes being created across the world. We are in 2022, we had 96, we're now over 111 globally of regulatory sandboxes. So this shows that this more and more regulators across the world are moving towards establishing regulatory innovation initiatives to interact with financial technology and innovation. Now, how can a regulator decide what's the best approach? Well, there is a free tool that we provide on the Regulatory Knowledge Exchange that asks self-assessment questions. And based on those self-assessment questions, you get a dedicated, customized diagnostic framework that provides you answers on what your self-assessment tells about what's the best approach to deal with regulatory innovation within your jurisdiction. Again, thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing you face to face next time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alexander, for setting the stage for our panel session and for delving deep into the kind of discussions that we can have and that can help us potentially in the future as well with regards to, of course, the regulatory practices with a focus on the SECP's regulatory sandbox journey and the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, next we're going to be moving on to that panel session in which, of course, all of these issues are going to be discussed. And as we move forward, we're going to take a look at the key challenges, the successes, and the insights, and of course, broader impact of such policies on the startup ecosystem of Pakistan. This session is going to be moderated by Director SECP, Ms. Amna Aziz, and I'd like to invite her on stage. I'll also be calling out the panelists one by one, and I'd request you to please come on stage as I introduce you. In no particular order, the panelists for this session include Mr. Nayyar Hussain, the Executive Director at Salam Family Takaful Limited, Pakistan's pioneering digital-only life takaful company, with extensive experience in actuarial science and strategic product development. He has been instrumental in the regulatory engagements and innovation, particularly through the SECP's regulatory sandbox. Mr. Shamoon Tariq, who's a globally recognized fund manager and founder of Bahana Wealth. With a distinguished career in asset management, Mr. Shamoon has been rated among the top fund managers in emerging Asia and MENA by Citywire. He brings a wealth of expertise in portfolio and risk management, alongside an acute focus on financial innovation through Mahana, which is a Y Combinator-backed venture. Thank you for joining us. We've also been joined by Mr. Faraz Banda Khuda, who's the CEO of Al Hilal Security Advisors Private Limited. He having more than 15 years of experience in the financial landscape, Mr. Faraz has several milestones to his name that truly make him a modern-day pioneer when it comes to product development, Sharia compliance, and Islamic capital markets. We've also been joined virtually by Mr. Tom Ward, who's an expert advisor at the Cambridge Centre for Alternative Finance and the former manager of the UK Financial Conduct Authority's regulatory sandbox, which he led from its inception in 2016 until 2020. Since then, Tom has been advising regulatory organizations and governments around the world on the design, implementation, and refinement of regulatory sandboxes. He also has substantial experience in developing and implementing regulatory policy and responses to innovation and fintech. We've been joined by Mr. Imran Khalil, who's CEO of Float Securities, a graduate from Newcastle Business School and fellow member of CIMA. He holds diversified experience in strategy formulation, governance, transformation, and global markets. To you, Ms. Amna, to take it from here.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you very much, Sana. I think we've played a video of the Regulatory Sandbox earlier. Regulatory Sandbox program by SECP was launched in 2019, and Nayyar here is one of the people who helped launch that program. And later on, he moved to the industry, so we'll be having perspective from Nayyar from both the sides. I'll begin with our online participant here, Tom Ward. Tom, as Sana introduced you, you were one of the pioneering members of the FCA regulatory sandbox. And we all know that FCA was one of the first regulators that introduced the regulatory sandbox in the regime. My question to you is, how have the regulatory sandbox evolved since their inception? And what are the key lessons learned in your opinion, and how UK transformed the sandbox with time, over time? Over to you, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me on this panel. It's a real honor to speak to you all this afternoon. And it's great to see the success and the evolution of the SECP's regulatory sandbox. It's fantastic to see. So yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, in terms of I think how sandboxes have evolved since their inception. And I think you're right that the FCA's regulatory sandbox was the first in the world, or at least I claim it's the first in the world. It may not quite be right, but I think there are sort of four key ways that I think it's evolved. I think the first thing to say is try to be more flexible in terms of what support we were providing to firms. Try and be responsive to firms' needs. So, for example, we started off in quite a rigid sort of cohort approach. It was interesting to see SECP having sort of maybe similar reflections on that. So moving to an always open approach, which we felt better met the needs of innovative firms. And also in terms of flexibility, recognizing that firms may not always need sandbox testing. I think, again, when we started, we were quite rigid in our thinking, that if a firm applied to a sandbox, we would assess it only for that sandbox. But try and be a bit more flexible. Not all firms that have interesting, innovative ideas actually need a sandbox test, and are there other things that we could do to support? So flexibility and being increasingly flexible was very important. I think very briefly, the second was thinking about different ways we could support. I think there's definitely a continuing need for regular sandboxes, so sandboxes that provide regulatory clarity. But I think there are other interesting sandboxes. So we developed, I think I'm right in saying it was the first digital sandbox. So firms were telling us what they were looking for was access to synthetic data where they could potentially test their prototypes at a sort of an earlier stage in the regulatory sandbox. And so we thought about that, and so we developed a digital sandbox where firms could get access to that data and potentially in an earlier stage of their journey than if they were going to a regulatory sandbox. I think third thing is internally as an organization thinking about the sandbox more as business as usual. So rather than it being a special project for the regulator, using the sandbox as a business as usual regulatory tool and supervisory tool that we could use. And I think I can maybe talk more about this later, but thinking about the culture of the regulator and trying to take the regulator with us on this sandbox journey, which was quite unusual. And so trying to build that internal momentum and create internal support, I think that was very important. In terms of the evolution, being more specific about business models and technologies we were looking to support. So we started off being very, very open. But I think as we matured, thinking about specific either business models or technologies that we were particularly interested in, to try and create demand across the industry in terms of things like green finance was open to all. So I'll stop there, but I think they're the sort of 3 or 4 sort of key ways that the sandbox evolved in the UK.
Thank you very much, Tom. And you're very right. Here at SECP, we also learned that although the cohort basis was suited us as a regulator, but the firms out there who wanted to test wanted more flexibility. by in terms of when they were ready to come to the sandbox and apply and like present their business cases. Moving on to you, Nair. Kindly just introduce what Salam Takaful is doing in the digital space. And also, I'd like you to focus about your experience in the sandbox environment and how it helped design new products that meet the regulatory standards without stifling the creativity and leveraging the technology in the same time.
Thank you, Amna. Sandbox experience. Salam Takaful has actually two companies. One is the Salam General Takaful, which is Pakistan's largest Takaful company. And second is the Salam First Digital Life Takaful, which we got licensed in April 2017. So I would like to give experience from two perspectives. One is from the product side and second is from the business model side. Our one product, basically the crop parametric weather index based product was submitted in the SECP's regulatory sandbox. And secondly, the telematics spread based product was also submitted. So for the crop based product, actually, I think the interaction with the SECP sandbox committee really improved the product because their focus on the consumer protection help us in designing the SOPs of interaction with the customers and improve the disclosures to the customers. Secondly, when we engage the agri ecosystem, so when we inform that actually to the whole idea actually. So I think that was the one thing which really helped us in I think taking up this product. And second is I would like to touch on the digital business model actually. The sandbox promoted the digital insurance model, and that actually you can say directly also encouraged not only innovation but also encouraged customer centricity. Because in a digital insurance model or any digital model, there's a more engagement between the customer, and when you look at the things from the customer's angle, so you try, you develop products from the customer centric point of view, and also your whole SOPs from the customer centricity. I think these are the main benefits of regulatory sandbox which we obtained here.
Thank you very much, Nair. Moving on to you, Shamoon. You were also part of the sandbox. You tested your digital solution about the asset management company that you've finally been licensed about as well. So tell us about Mahana, your management company, and how have you been leveraging technology to create ease for the wealth management platform that you've created?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. Mahana was born in Sweden, where I was working with the founder in the digital investment management and financial inclusion with the first hand, where 90% of our assets were coming from a different distribution platform, and we were managing the Swedish pension primarily. So Tundra partners and then Sayed Babarali and Sayed Hyderali from Packages, we decided that for the last 15, 20 years, the mutual fund accounts and the brokerage accounts were stagnated at like 300 to 400, 500. So something had to be done on that. So obviously having some knack for technology and understanding how things we presented the concept to the then SECP management, and surprisingly, Nair was also part of that team at that time. And so my experience with the SECP has been very much different compared to any other company in the sandbox, because when we presented the concept, it actually, so we gave birth to the digital AMC concept together with SECP, with right start to their director level at the SCT, so forth. So Mahana originally is about making people save on a monthly basis for different goals of their lives. So we started in a sandbox with a low risk product of Islamic money market, which is Mahana Islamic Cash Fund. And we technology low risk product. And during that journey with the with the SECP on that. I think a lot of support was actually extended by the SECP, especially on the regulatory. We did, and then we presented that to the SECP, and then they gave a nod. And surprisingly, SECP was at the forefront in terms of changing those regulations. So many in the last 1.5 years that we have been operational, things actually coming into the form of regulations, and many more are actually coming. And then we were allowed to launch an equity product. So we launched a replica of KMI 30 index ETF, which is in Pakistan. So all the other ETFs were basically a subset of maybe 10 or 15 maximum. But we launched the 30 stocks ETF, which is 99% replica of 30. So the idea was to the retail customers who do not have the experience to pick and choose, understanding, and so forth. So that's what we launched earlier this year. And now we are launching VPS, that is a pension fund with IGLI. So it's a joint product. It's also first of a kind because it's sort of a white label product, that the concept that does not exist in Pakistan at this point in time. So given the regulatory firewalls and everything, so we have constructed a product which might be very useful for new players that might want to start something having certain expertise, but do not want the entire spectrum of the financial management and so forth. So the pension fund is going to be launched basically short-term goals to medium-term to long goals, or everything covered in one digital platform and so forth, and whatever the missing pieces are. So Mahana is about providing access, easy access to open your account in the mutual fund, to the stock market, to pension fund insurance. The second leg that we believe in is the investment advisory. That's a financial education part. We have tested few models, but this is something we'll be doing more and more. And the third is creating new investment products that do not yet exist in Pakistan and so forth. On the journey, maybe we can have, on your follow-up questions, I can take that.
Thank you very much, Moon. Basically, that is the very purpose of the regulatory sandbox, is that we make some evidence-based decisions regarding a regulatory framework. The regulations are it's a mechanism by way of which that any amendments in the regulations are tested beforehand for risk mitigation purposes, and now things I think are framed, regulations are better framed. My next panelist is someone who's testing a model for which, unfortunately, SECP does not have a framework right now. So for us, coming to you, you are testing a Sharia compliant digital fractionalization model. So tell us about that.
Thank you very much for having me here. Just to introduce ourselves, what we've been trying to do over the last 6-7 months is we are introducing fractionalized gold product. So the concept is that an individual retail investor would be able to buy gold for as low as ₹500. And in that case, what we are trying to do is that acquire physical gold, keep it in a vault, and give access digitally to the retail clients to purchase that gold and store it in the same vault. But with the additional advantage that if they can accumulate up to around 1 tola gold over a period of time, because each and every individual cannot buy a tola gold instantly. So people can start saving in gold, and once they accumulate this 1 tola, they would be able to physically withdraw gold as well. The primary challenge that we have faced so far is the regulatory approvals from other regulators as well. So the SECP has been supportive in building this idea with us, but primary lies in the overall economic effort is going there, but the undocumented economy is playing a very big role in Pakistan. So the availability of documented gold is itself a very, very big challenge. So we are trying to overcome the challenge, and then we are trying to digitize the payments as well in this situation, so that people can have access to gold, and of course in the documented environment. So that's a very big challenge, and we are working closely with the SECP team and the FBR team as well to come up with a solution to turn the tables on the where undocumented gold can become part of the documented industry, and the overall economy and the industry can further be documented in that.
Thank you much, Raz. Me does pose a challenge when it comes to financial services. We heard from Mr. Suhail Jawad earlier as well. So with the advancement in that size, where we're moving from to cashless economy, maybe there might be a solution for undocumented economy as well. Moving to Imran. Imran, you are the CEO of the Sort Securities. We hope to see you in the sandbox sometimes as well. So what are your plans about leveraging technology to offer innovative products to your clients?
Thank you, Amina. Firstly, thank you for the invitation. It provides a great platform for all the stakeholders to come together and discuss relevant ideas. So thank you for that. Just as a brief, so the stakeholders, I basically head a family brokerage house. We are members of Pakistan Stock Exchange. And in terms of technology transaction, we started off originally as a member of Lahore Stock Exchange, having an investment license. When I came back from the UK, I activated that license and then transitioned over. The challenges we faced in that licenses were we were not able to execute trades because that was not a very liquid platform. So we then bidded for a membership of Karachi Stock Exchange. In those days, there were a lot of brokerage houses. They were getting bust. So usse we got one license, and then we became a member of Karachi Stock Exchange, and that got merged into Pakistan Stock Exchange. So in terms of the transaction journey, we've seen the Lahore Stock Exchange journey, the Karachi Stock Exchange, and the amalgamation into Pakistan Stock Exchange. And in terms of going forward, we've now transitioned an arrangement with CDC's subsidiary, eClear Services Limited, which provides our clients the asset segregation, the asset management side facilities. So a lot of that is done by an independent company, a professional company that handles all the regulatory side of things, the confirmations, the holding of assets, the transaction, and also the holding of client balances and so on. So that is all done by a third party that provides added assurance, trust to the clients. So that's an area that we've done. In terms of going forward, I think that has provided us a great platform, because what we can do with that technology collaboration with CDC's eClear Services is open up that channel to not only Pakistanis in Pakistan, but also overseas Pakistanis across the world, and also foreign clients. So all the process for transaction execution of orders has been digitized. The human element has been taken care of because there's no human element in there. From the time of account, the client can choose depending on where the client is coming from. If it's an overseas Pakistani, we can open up the account through the overseas RAST platform or through the Roshan digital platform, utilizing CDC's eClear Services team's facilitation. Likewise, for locals, we've taken the facility of centralized gateway portal, CGP. Through that, clients can open up. Data is amalgamated from various platforms, and once the account is opened up, it's by the way, the whole process is very digitized, from opening of the account to receiving payments, which are automatically credited into client ledgers within a few minutes. So that's just a brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imran. Tom, coming back to you. We see that there are a number of emerging technologies. We hear in the words like AI, blockchain, DeFi. So, what do you think? How can regulatory bodies adapt? What the response should be from regulators' perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, and it's actually absolutely fascinating to hear about the innovations on the from the panelists. I would much rather, I think, be listening to them than they would be listening to me. So I'll be very brief on this. But yeah, I think most sandboxes see either the innovation in the business model itself far more common in sandboxes, and I think it's definitely fair that it can be difficult for regulators initially to become familiar with the application of new technologies. Typically regulators will have a thorough understanding of different business models, but actually an entirely new technology. Certainly, I'm an ex-regulator, and I certainly found that very challenging. So I think sandboxes can definitely help. I think sandboxes, in my experience, can bring in specialist advisors or sort of regulatory liaisons with expertise in particular technology to help the regulator and the firm sort of understand the sort of the complex compliance issues that may be encountered. I also think sandboxes can help regulators develop tailored guidelines and common testing parameters and risk mitigation approaches for using different technologies. And these can, in my experience, quite often be quite standard. So I would have supported a lot of firms using blockchain in sandboxes, and I would have very similar risks and mitigating measures for if a firm's using blockchain, they need to make sure that the transaction is recorded off ledger and things like that. So you sort of develop a sort of a corpus of common risks and mitigation tools for firms using similar technologies. And finally, and I think probably more importantly, it allows sandboxes allow regulators when they're encountering new technologies to and potentially developing new regulations or new guidance to the market to clarify what the regulator thinks about a particular technology. And I think sandboxes can really help with that, to give the regulators that practical experience. I'll give an example. It's an example I always give. So if you've heard me talk before, I use the same example, so I apologize for that. But it's a real life example. So in the early days of the UK sandbox, we had a lot of firms using blockchain technology or come to us saying they want to use blockchain technology, for example, in terms of debt security issuances or maybe cross-border payments. And they were unclear about what the regulators' view of blockchain was. And frankly, being the regulator, we were not clear about what our view was of blockchain technology. We didn't really know what it was or what we thought about it. But taking these firms into the sandbox allowed us to develop a real practical understanding of the benefits and risks of blockchain. And as a result of that, we did then issue guidance to the market to sort of clarify the expectations. And, we were told that was very helpful in terms of allowing firms give firms the sort of the confidence to use blockchain and to understand what the regulator thought of it. So I think it can be really, really helpful in terms of giving regulators our real world understanding to then either provide clarification, myth busters, that confidence.
Thank you very much, Tom. And definitely, the advancements in technology provide a challenge for regulators worldwide, and we need to understand technology to basically harness it better for our financial services. And Nair, coming back to you, my question to you is regarding the parametric insurance product that you've tested. What has been your response from the market? And just share with us your experience on that, and definitely what are the challenges you're facing getting penetration for that sort of a product that you've tested.
Yeah, thank you, Amna, for your question. I think the response was parametric insurance resolved many of the problems of the indemnity-based insurance in terms of simplification of process and simplification of claim process. But the main challenges which we faced was, one is the scalability, because the farmers, it's very difficult for them to afford the premiums. So the question is who's going to subsidize the premium? So basically, I think the premium subsidy, absence of premium subsidy is the main problem for the scalability of this product. The product itself was taken good by the market. We had engagement with these certain seed providers. We collaborated with the Syngenta, and we launched this product with them. When the population in the urban areas is not fully aware of the insurance, so it's difficult to expect that the population in the rural areas is fully aware of the product. So I think awareness is also, as I mentioned, the scalability due to the absence of premium subsidy. I think these are three main challenges.
Shamoon, basically, my question to you too is regarding your test and what sort of insight you got while testing in the sandbox, and what was your experience like, and how did it help in developing the product that you were offering?
Well, I think like the initial period was very tough. So when we started, the government changed, and then the entire team of the SECP changed as well, and why did not get in time and so forth. So I'll speak about the challenges first that we have seen so far, and then how the response has been. So I guess the biggest challenge that we are seeing is, like, first of all, I think SECP has to rotate less, because every 6 months the team changes, and then you have to redo the approval process all over again and so forth. Secondly, I think every stakeholder in the financial system is working in silo. That needs to be coherent, because we have to, or any startup for that matter, has to deal with all these issues independently. So maybe SECP is at forefront. They do their work much faster compared to the other stakeholder like CDC or NCCPL or Stock Exchange, State Bank, and so forth. And bringing everyone together was actually a huge challenge for us. The third was the tech stack. I think Pakistan lags behind in terms of the technology. And I'm not just talking about one institution, I think all the institutions. I'll just give you one example. So there was one integration that we were doing, and when we got those API documents, and my CTO told me that this is the 15 years old technology that we are operating on. That is another challenge. I think every regulator, every stakeholder has to upgrade their technology and so forth. And yeah, so I think that's, and I think we have been very lucky in terms of the support that we have received from SECP, from CDC, from a stock exchange, and from State Bank. And as been entered, so like if you look at the last 5 to 7 years history of the fintech model in Pakistan, most startups or innovative solution has been on the payment side, on the lending side, and I think we are the side or the wealth management side. So for us, being a pioneer in that regard, where we had to do most of this ourselves, we had to work with all the stakeholders and also improve the time. So and they have received a support from CDC, and I still recall when we asked them, like, we want to send the online account to you, and they said, like, download the PDF form and email it to us, and we were like, okay, how can we do the 100 accounts and so forth? But then we build those APIs together, and I can proudly say that now today CDC and IT Minds has the capability for everyone who ever wants to connect with their system. They have those tech rails ready for them. So they might not have to go journey that we had to go. So as soon as the regulations are here, anyone can AMC having their own, and the tech stack is ready. I'm not saying that it is there. There are a lot of things, but the most encouraging part is that they listen and they change, they ask us. Same goes with SECP. So I think that response has been very well. And I also have to give credit to the CP as well. As soon as they came up with the RAS P2P system, we were the biggest beneficiary of that. Since we were operating 100% on the technology, end to end with the reconciliation, with the investment management and so forth, for us, it was very important that we could actually trace the transaction. So RAS P2P is something that has also helped us reduce our overhead costs, but also increase the efficiency. We are now integrating with the RAS P2M, which is in a testing phase right now. I think that would be a game changer with the auto debit facility and so forth, and stuff like that. Having said that, I think in the last 20 years overall, if you look at the financial industry, there have been like 300,000 brokerage accounts and 500,000 mutual fund accounts. So you can understand the industry where it stands. But like when we started, I personally thought that maybe it's the investment management that is not done properly. Maybe it's a high cost that people talk about, especially SECP on that part. But ultimately, I kind of realized that it's about, we can have as many seminars or webinars or educational programs and so forth. But if we have a door shut, no one can actually enter that. And I guess that was the biggest challenge. And it took us 1.5 years to actually crack that. And at a cost like which maybe other institutions are not willing to pay. So we invested more than $1 million just on the onboarding and the KYC technology and so forth. And there is more to come yet. So that part, that access part is very important. I think there is no single player that can do it. I think the ecosystem as a whole has to evolve, including the regulator and other financial stakeholders and so forth. So once we were very comfortable with the KYC part and the onboarding part, so we opened up our 3 months ago and on the financial education, and we got like more than 10,000 accounts in 3 months, and our total AUMs are now close to 2 billion from the retail side. So the response is very, very encouraging to start with, and I can say like, but it was like we were able to achieve that because we had to, we were able to open the accounts. So there was one guy who told me like, I would give you so many customers, but make sure your app works. And that was that stuck in my mind. But like if you look at other brokerage houses or like not AMCs but brokerage house and so forth, they total have like maybe 15,000 or like barring top 2 and top 3. It means there's people want to save, and it's a very underpenetrated industry, and we are kind of very excited about it. And now enhance on the technological side, we have, I guess we are the first one to now achieve the algorithmic trading capabilities in Pakistan. This is a subject that SECP does not cover in their regulations. And once we are very comfortable, so we are partnering up with GS Global as a, I guess they have a little bit more technological stack. And I'm naming them because so that other brokerage houses that also provide those technological rails so that investment managers or advisors can use those technology so that they do what they do best and so forth. So now we have achieved the algorithmic trading, no human intervention and so forth. So maybe in 3 months' time, we will be coming back to you and say, okay, we have done the robo-advisory and algorithmic trading part and so forth. But yeah, I guess without undermining the support that SECP and other stakeholders are lending, including Nadra, including CDC, including State Bank, I think it has been a tremendous journey.
Thank you. You mentioned algo trading and robo-advisories. These are two models that we've tested. We tested robo-advisory in our first cohort, in fact. but the people who tested, they couldn't find any partners in the industry, and they couldn't take off. And I am hearing similar things about the people who are testing algo trading right now. They're struggling to get partners on the conventional side. So that is something that needs to change. And move to you. How do you think that algo trading what's the appetite for the investors in that, and how do you think that that will affect our overall market in terms of the volumes, that if it gains traction and we get people interested in algo trading? If you could just give me your views on that.
So Amna, firstly, the appetite for general trading is building up as we see stability, as we see progress within the country, as we see economic challenges being met. And I think that will ultimately lead to more stability in terms of people venturing out into algo trading and other. Generally, as a brokerage house, our challenges are to encourage people to do conventional trading also. But I think from the algo perspective, put it this way, it opens up endless opportunities for the clients at large. And I would just like to also maybe say, if we keep on doing things the way we have, we'll end up being the same. So in order to be, and as an example, if you look at a lot of businesses across the world, so businesses that were there 100 years ago, 150 years ago are not, some of those are not even there today, because one thing that they failed to do was innovate. And I think that's an area. So having said that, things and build the trust of the public, which involves more involvement of stakeholders, and perhaps that is when they would accept it in a better way. Obviously, there are pros and cons of the algo trading, because it on the one side it takes away the human element, reduces the trade errors that are done with the trading cycle. But on the other side, it could also result in lesser liquidity and other challenges. So we can discuss all day about it, but I think we need more trials. We need more public to be engaged within that, so that there's better acceptance of it.
What I get from you is that you're still not.
I think this opens up endless opportunities, and I think this is a great start. But what because we were not part of the trial, so I think we would need a little bit more involvement in order to build the trust element for us as an organization, and also then for our stakeholders. So, but I would agree with you that this opens up great opportunities for us in order to enhance not only our trade volume.
Okay, coming to you, Faraz. Another thing that Shamoon mentioned was that they had to print and fill and then email a form to CDC initially. So when we talk of technology, it is there to ease our clients and provide ease of doing business. But there's a difference between digital and digitization. What the form printing and scanning it meant was it was a digitized version of doing business, but not digital. So how does your customer service, your customer figure in terms of your business model that you're testing in the sandbox?
Apart from the gold fractionalization thing, what we are doing over the past 3 years is we've launched a portal. It's an app called Hilal Invest, where we are aggregating all the mutual funds. So it's a digital platform for aggregating mutual funds. Unfortunately, the industry is not ready in itself. So whenever we take digital data from the investors, we at some point in time we have to make the operations are being digitized. Instead of digitizing the economy, digitizing the whole process, we are actually digitizing the operations thing. So there are certain cases where we take the data digitally and then we have to put it on the physical form through the use of technology, then asset management company. The challenge that I would like to identify is that what happens is that opening a bank account in Pakistan has become very easy now. So just by providing 3 or 4 basic information, you can open up a bank account. But to open an account with an asset management company or in a brokerage, or for example, an investment account, an investor is required to provide 42 different inputs. So that's a big challenge for the investors. If you see, a lot of people are migrating towards digital platforms provided by international players. There are quite a number of users. There are different quotations about this, that Binance has 10 million users or 1 million users. We don't know. But they are investing in cryptos. They are investing in other digital assets. But so the problem is not the digitizing. The problem is the acceptability of the local assets, the local investment venues, and the ease of the process. So I think we need to jointly work on the ease of process as well. That how we can make it easy for investors to open an account with in different investment avenues in Pakistan. So not only digitizing the operations, but actual journey. And one suggestion that if a person already has a bank account, that person has already gone through a rigorous KYC. The bank has done KYC. So why do we need another KYC in the asset management industry as well? So can't we just collaborate with different regulators and we can have a joint regulatory regime here that if a person has a bank account and the KYC has been done, that person can automatically open an investment account with a brokerage house or an asset management company with those credentials, and then that person can start investing. I think that would create a lot of new investors in the market.
Okay, for us, I think one such initiative is the Central Gateway Portal that has been recently launched by CDC, and I think that would, to a large extent, address this thing. That is, the KYC is being done at the Central Gateway Portal, and that can be used all across the industry, whether it's brokerage or mutual fund. I think we still have time for one last round of questions. And I'll just put a question to all of you, and this is the same question, that how can the regulator support innovators and firms that have tested in the regulatory sandbox once they exit? Should there be support from the regulator, and if yes, what sort of a support that should be? Tom, we can begin with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question. I'd be really interested in what the innovators on the stage think about this. I'll bring a regulatory perspective. I think it's very hard. We'd have a firm in the sandbox, the IP or the special support from the regulator. The regulator was always on call. It's quite an intensive, collaborative process in the sandbox. And then once a firm exits the sandbox, it's an entirely different relationship with the regulator. A lot of firms felt that very, very jarring, very uncomfortable, that they have a sort of a friendly face within the sandbox, and then they go with the sort of the supervisory pool, and they are sort of essentially a lot of times left to their own devices entirely. And firms quite rightly were saying, look, we still need support. We still need support about what how we report to the regulator, our compliance obligations, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's definitely a need for some sort of transitional approach from the regulator in terms of helping firms who have recently graduated from the sandbox, giving them a degree of additional support. So one thing the SCA did on this was to develop a supervisory function that provides a degree of enhanced support to recently graduated firms to try and sort of soften that landing. And also, so from a firm's perspective, they get increased regulatory attention, but I think also from a regulatory perspective, can hopefully help the regulator sort of monitor risks and intervene if necessary for these innovative business models. So I'll stop there. I think it is a challenge. I've supported many sandboxes around the world. I don't know any sandbox that does this particularly well, but I think it'd be very interesting to understand perspectives from people on the stage about what can be done here.
I think first, as a result of a sandbox, then generally regulators issue uh, the further regulations. So I think the regulations supporting, I will talk primarily regarding insurance point of view. First, identify a viable commercial business model, basically, actually, and the whole regulatory framework should support that business model. What has happened, for example, in case of digital only, so that framework was primarily it addresses the licensing part actually, and not much on the and third, obviously the digital onboarding process has also not been prescribed. For example, the digital insurance in Pakistan are regulated under the insurance ordinance, and there's a licensing regime under the insurance rules. But for example, there's a document called illustration, for example. So typically, I mean, the same illustration is being also to be given by the digital insurance. But obviously, I mean, when you have a digital experience with the customer, you should be allowed to give some more graphical presentation to the customer. Why just to give a paper actually? So so currently the whole digital conduct has not been addressed by the regulatory framework. So first is I think the consequential regulatory framework should support a viable commercial model actually, and that should be supported. Second, I think SECP, I mean, is very supportive and is doing very good job and promoting innovation and like I mean, conducting these such type of seminars. But I think SCP has obviously some other functions as well, license function, for example. So licensing function, I mean, this is my personal experience, is not very aligned with the market development function, obviously. So when you are graduated from a sandbox, then you have to interact with the licensing department actually. So I mean, and they are maybe on a different page, I think. So first is the regulatory framework should support a viable commercial business model. And secondly, the innovation should be supported by all functions of SCP. Third is I think that the conduct of business should be from a digital perspective. It should not just be from the I mean, I would say digitization. It should be digitization actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nair. Shuman, over to you. The same question. What sort of support do you think regulators should be providing once you've exited the sandbox?
Okay. I think I have a few suggestions and also the area of supports that are needed. I think for SECP and any of the regulator need to understand that they need to understand technology first. The challenge that is there, that like here we see like startup. Obviously in the West, startup is a synonymous for a technology company. So starting a normal shop or AMC, that is also a startup. So we need to understand that the terminology that's coined here is actually technology. And I do not see that sort of a tech understanding that needs to be there, because only then you will understand what the challenges are for any digital insurer or a broker or an asset manager or a lender, and so forth. So I think that support has to be there, because there would be many things. Like, for example, even today, I'm not 100% sure that AMCs can use the global cloud or the local cloud and so forth. And it's very difficult to find that under regulations and so forth. Secondly, obviously being a startup with the low budgets or with the very lean team, I'd say, compliances and regulations is a hassle. It's not that no one wants to follow that, but it would be very good, like if there is a singular document telling every financial or a fintech to like sort of abide by. I think that is one of the challenge that we kind of face, and obviously we as a techies, we're focusing more on the product, we're focusing more on on growing the user base and so forth. So there are areas at some time that you bypass in terms of the compliances and so forth. So have some a tolerant view on that part and so forth. Secondly, in the sandbox, I'd say, first of all, it's a great initiative, and I'm the beneficiary of sandbox. So, but as a suggestion, I'd say, like, obviously, being in the sandbox in itself is not an incentive. I can do the same business without getting into the sandbox. So I think sandbox has to now move beyond just allowing the companies or the people to test their model, but like maybe hand-holding post sandbox so that they're financially viable and they're insolvent. Uh, like apart from like, and as here mentioned, as soon as you graduate from the sandbox and then you're on your own and you have to go through the same bureaucratic processes and so forth. So I think those could be kind of streamlined from that regard and so forth, because you can have as many companies in the sandbox, but if they do not see light of the day, then this entire exercise is fruitless. So it is also your responsibility in a manner making easy environment and ease of doing business so that they actually kind of make sure that they actually grow and challenge the incumbents or the old school thoughts.
Faraz, the same question. What sort of a support would you be expecting from the regulator once you exit the sandbox?
One thing I feel is that liaison with other regulatory authorities in Pakistan, for example, the State Bank, the FBR, that is also very necessary for a lot of startups and for a lot of these sandbox companies. So if SECP can help in that, in aligning with them, in providing some regulatory comfort with those as well, because those regulatory authorities say that you are currently not under our regime, so you have to come through a different channel to us. So if SECP can aid in aligning with them as well, that would be another plus point. Secondly, I would also want, apart from just from your question, just adding another comment that since as a nation we are moving towards Islamization of the financial system, so I think SECP should also now start encouraging sandboxes more towards Islamic finance, or in general those who are going towards Islamic fintech solutions. So encouraging that, because in the future, in the next 3, 5, 4 years, all the conventional institutions also be wanting towards the process. So it's better to start off from that initial Islamic finance thing, and so that in the future it would be even helpful for those.
Thank you very much, Faraz. Imran, just the last question. SECP has introduced digital-only brokerage regulations. So, what sort of an opportunity does those regulations provides to fintechs out there? How can they build their business on that?
So Amna, that's a subcategory of a trade-only brokerage houses currently. It's a great opportunity for some of the fintechs here, because what you can do is, with very minimal requirements, minimal depository requirements, you can actually come up with a business model where you can provide those services to the public at large, having met certain regulations, obviously. In terms of the opportunity, I think the model is great currently. There are one or two tweaks if I was to suggest to the current model, because as I understand from the exchange, there are only two applications, or only one or two applications that have been received so far. So that provides either the awareness is not there, or people have not really tapped into the opportunity. And if we were to do one or two tweaks, because currently you're not allowed to do your proprietary trading in that category. So what I would suggest is, if somebody wants to do just proprietary trading and open up a digital brokerage house for themselves, I think this should also be a model for them to do it, unless there's something that I'm missing in that model. Because what that would do is provide that would enhance our numbers of clients, that would enhance the volumes in the market, and that would provide connectivity at a very low cost. And I think maybe some more awareness is needed, because it's a great model, but people don't know much about it. And that's where we need to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imran. Unfortunately, that is how much time we had with us. It's been a great discussion. We've got some in-depth insights on how what business models were tested. Thank you very much, Tom. I know it's very early for you there in UK, but you gave us a fair bit of an idea how Sandbox in the UK has been working. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the moderator and the esteemed panelists. I'd request you all to please remain on the stage. If you can come back actually on the stage, because we also would like to give you small tokens of our appreciation for taking the time out and, of course, for sharing your valuable input and insights. And to present these shields, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Musarrat Jabin, who's the Executive Director at SECP. Can we have the shields, please? In no particular order, I'd like to request Ms. Musarrat to please. And Mr. Faraz Bandahuda, CEO, Al Hilal. For Tom Ward, we'll be delivering a token of appreciation, and I guess we can also give international standards of multi-industry international cybersecurity project, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, North America, Asia Pacific, and the Middle Eastern enterprises. And of course, this is something which is very, very important
And with apologies in advance for needing to leave early. Uh, given the delayed start time to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Actually, I appreciate that all you have covered all the points, especially you also touched upon the data localization. That is a big debate among different countries, including Pakistan. I totally appreciate it, and I wish all of the TA, particularly Cyber Vigilance Directorate, very forward-looking regulator who has actually came into play, and they started regulating the telcos and ISP when it comes to the cyber security. And I think then
be lower, but the impact is really higher, right? So I think that this particular matter of digital frauds needs to be taken seriously by all the.
I think your last point is very crucial, and my follow-up question is on that is, do entrepreneurs have a realization that there is a link of cyber attack on their good? When we do the business evaluation and all that, goodwill is a critical part. So is this realization?
So I mean, it's something from a study we've done, and in any case, our engagement is still at a very nascent stage, particularly when we talk about the smaller businesses, right? And there needs to be specific investment, and I think kinds of Googles have taken. I can talk about what